time.
Oh, there we go. Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty instant, but
yeah. So week 11, like I said in the description, one team was able to take over a division that they dominated for 15 years. One team was able to get back on the winning ways, as they like to say, or they're back in their winning ways in a pretty good game. And a couple other teams got beat that should not have been beaten. But we are here. It's week 11. We got myself, Big Tuna from Bigger and Bradder, and Mike from McKell Sports. And like I said, we appreciate you guys watching it, hanging out with us here live or checking us out here later in the week. But overall, it's a tough week for me, not college-wise, but pro-wise. And I know for Mike, it was a tough weekend overall, football-wise for him. But we'll get into that in the middle of the show. Other than that, you can find me on Instagram at Bigger and Bradder Sports and on Twitter at BigTunaBBS. And then, Mike, you can let them know where you're going to be at.
Yeah, guys, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at MyKell Sports. Week 2 of going live every single day on my channel. So make sure to just check that out. And Instagram at MyKell Sports _YouTube, and then Twitter at MyKell Sports.
Check it out. How's the live stuff going? Good?
It's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it more, and it's like I can talk about everything. I get more views. More people watch it after the fact than people that tune in live. So
you get that a lot, and that's something that I think some people get discouraged about. But it's it's just like anything. People got stuff to do, and it's like it's on their TiVo or whatever they used to call it there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, let's start the first game. With what was that?
I said maybe I should start doing my lives later because I do them at 5. It's at 5 o'clock every single day. Maybe I should do later. But
I don't know if that's that bad. Well, it's your choice, dude. Like I said, it's always been, it's your channel. You do what you got to do. First game we're going to go over here, a little bit of a blowout here. The 49ers go to Jacksonville and beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 30-10. It was 30-3 before Jacksonville scored a late touchdown by James Robinson. Thank you very much. He's in my fantasy team. But overall, stats-wise, Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence struggled a little bit again. He was 16 for 25 for 158, sacked 3 times, also ran the ball for 28 yards. And Robinson ran the ball for 29 yards and a touchdown. And on the receiving side, Marvin Jones and Chenault there both had over 50 yards receiving. On the defensive side, Wilson had a sack. Robertson Harris had a sack. And that's about it for Jacksonville. On the San Francisco side, Jimmy G threw for 176 and 2 touchdowns. Deebo Samuel was their leading rusher with 79 yards and a touchdown. He also caught 1 pass for 15 yards. I'm kind of, wondering what the issue is with their running backs because they, I just don't think that I'm a little, confused about them using him as a running back. But again,
I think
he's been effective.
Yeah,
I mean that's the thing. He's run for I think over like 170 yards last 2 games. So maybe it's just something they're trying. Rushing wise, Wilson had 50 yards rushing. He ran the ball 19 times for 50 yards. On the receiving side, Ayuk had 85 yards and a touchdown, and Kittle had himself a touchdown receiving as well. Good to see him back. On the defensive side, Nick Bosa had 2 sacks. Arden Key gets a sack. And no interceptions. So, yeah, a little bit of a blowout here, unfortunately. But still, San Francisco's looking better and better.
Yeah, they are looking better and better. And Deebo Samuel is still balling every single week. Jimmy G he's actually starting to get it done, and he's not throwing up a bunch of numbers. Like you said, he didn't even break 200 passing yards. But he's getting it done. Let's be honest. The Jaguars, I mean, we say this every week. They're simply they're not good. They're not a good football team right now. So not really much to say overall about it. Lawrence wasn't really terrible, but he's on such a bad team that like you kind of, I mean, no, I wasn't expecting this guy to be rookie of the year. You know what I mean? I mean, look at Justin Herbert last year on the Chargers. The Chargers at least had some pieces there for him to play good. I know he didn't get a lot of wins, but he had pieces there to help him play good.
Mm.
This guy, Trevor Lawrence, has barely anything, man. So I don't blame him at all for struggling. But at least he wasn't god-awful in this game. And like you said about the 49ers, getting better and better every week, they keep on winning these games. They could get that 7th, maybe even the 6th or 5th playoff spot. This looks like a wild card team right now. And I know they just played the Jags, but I mean they've looked like
the W.
Team. Yeah. So
the W. Doesn't matter. These are the games that good teams need to win because we're going to talk about another team that played a team like the Jaguars and lost.
Right.
So it's not like, that you can't overlook teams like that. So, but overall, when they got someone like Deebo Samuel running the ball and still being effective and don't need him to catch the ball as well when Ayuk's there to take over for that. I mean, not a bad situation for Jimmy G. The thing is that if Jimmy G continues to play like this and they make a playoff spot, I mean, I would think next year still Jimmy G should be their quarterback. But I mean,
could be. I just don't know. I really don't understand why they drafted Lance at the number 3.
I don't think they had faith in Jimmy G but it's just like every quarterback. Every quarterback that gets someone drafted high is going to be pissed off and is going to want to play better because they don't want to lose their job to a rookie. And I also think it's the injury thing too that Jimmy G gets hurt almost every year.
But you could get a good backup in the second round. They could have took Kyle Trask in the second round.
Yeah. No, but they drafted to have someone as their starter, but it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just let Jimmy G do what he's doing, and continue from there. Next game we got Cam Newton had his homecoming spoiled by the Washington football team, 27-21. It was a crazy game back and forth. Came right down to the wire where Washington was able to stop Carolina so they couldn't score and beat them. But Cam Newton came back, and he wasn't terrible. He really wasn't. He ended up throwing for 189, 2 touchdowns, also ran for a touchdown. McCaffrey had 59 yards rushing, 60 yards receiving, and a touchdown. Moore had 50 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side, Reddick had a sack. Haynes and Burns also had sacks there. No interceptions thrown by either quarterback here. Heineke had 206 and 3 touchdowns. Nice game by him. Gibson had 95 yards rushing. McKissick had 46 yards rushing. The receiving side, McLaurin had a 100-yard game with 103 and a touchdown. And Carter and Sims both had receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side, Smith Williams had half a sack. And like I said, there was no INTs thrown. So both teams with decent records, but Washington's on a 2-game winning streak right now.
Yeah, I mean, they are. And they're 2 really good wins. Last week they had a great win. And then I know the Panthers aren't great, but they're definitely a lot better than some people might think that they are. And going on the road and winning in the NFL is hard. So it's 2 good wins in the row for the Washington football team. Heineke played really well again in this game. Scary Terry just doing what Scary Terry does, having a great game. This guy, I mean, I've been saying this guy's a top 10 wide receiver. This guy might be a top 5 wide receiver. He's really good. He's really, really good. And Super Cam, he played really good too. The Panthers, man, I really wanted him to win this game because of Cam Newton obviously being back. Just didn't happen that way for them. Washington played really good in this one. And it was a great game down to the wire. It wasn't, it wasn't one of those boring close games. This was an exciting game throughout. And it was really good. And yeah, Christian McCaffrey, I didn't realize that him being back was such a big deal. I know whenever he got hurt, I was going, well, I think the Panthers are going to be fine. They're terrible without him. They're doing a lot better with him. So they got to be glad he's back because he is doing a lot better. Thanks for the compliment on the Chargers jersey. My guy Herbert played really good yesterday. So
Yeah, Matthew J. Evans is in the chat as well as somebody else that I can't get their name there, but
I think it's just a diamond.
it's just a diamond. Okay, he said, "Who's the Packers fan here?" That would be Mike.
Me.
Yes, Michael J. Evans in here, and honestly, there's a fun thing. Me and Matt might actually be starting a podcast that has nothing to do with sports, just like an everyday kind of radio show, which would be a lot of fun.
Cool.
But that's up in the air right now. But we'll see what happens there. I hate to say it, but I'm kind of losing my edge when it comes to sports, especially with Raiders stuff, because it's just getting to be too much.
So much drama for the Raiders right now.
Yeah, it's just getting to be a little too much. But, like you said, Washington, 2 games in a row. They've won 2 games in a row. Not a bad thing there. The one thing that I wanted to say, too, looking at the game here, is that McLaurin there, no matter who's in there, who's playing quarterback, he is good. That's all it is.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of, I hate to say this, but he reminds me a lot of like Barry Sanders in the way of not as good as Barry Sanders ever was. Right. And obviously he's not a running back, but no matter who's on the team, he's going to play well.
Right.
And it doesn't matter who's throwing the ball. Well, let's say, how about this, Larry Fitzgerald?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Larry Fitzgerald. He's not as good as Larry Fitzgerald ever was, but still constantly good.
Right. But I saw something that said, could you imagine if Terry McLaurin had a really good quarterback? If Terry McLaurin had a really good quarterback that would spread the ball around to other guys, do you think Terry McLaurin would even be that good? Because, I mean, he does get a lot of targets. So, I mean, he does dominate, but it's because he gets a lot of targets because he's probably the first read on most plays. If he had a quarterback that looked to other reads, then would he be as good? I think the answer is still yes. I mean, you look at Devontae Adams. Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback, and he spreads the ball around. But Devontae Adams is still that guy. Yeah, I think Terry McLaurin. I think in maybe next year or the year after, we'll start throwing Terry McLaurin in the best receiver in football conversation.
Oh, absolutely. He's just
already he's a top 5 guy. And
every year he's maturing. Every year he's maturing. Next game we got the Lions lose again, and I think everyone should be pretty sure that they're going to pick number 1 overall this year. But they only lose by 3 in this game. They actually were shut out in the first half and then shut the Bears out in the second half, or the Browns out in the second half. But the Browns were able to win. It was a nasty rain game. It was a really nasty rain game between those two. But there was one guy that kind of did well between everything. The one who didn't do good was Jared Goff did not play in this game. It was Boyle there, and he threw for 77 yards and 2 interceptions. But DeAndre Swift came out of nowhere with 14 rushes for 136 yards and a touchdown. He played really well. On the receiving side, Hawkinson had 51 yards receiving, nothing really big to show there. On the defensive side, you had Harris and Bryant both get half a sack, and Parker and Aruwari get interceptions here, which means that Baker Mayfield threw another 2 interceptions in this game, but still gets the W. Baker Mayfield threw for 176, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Nick Chubb was the star of this game with 130 yards rushing and a receiving touchdown. On the receiving side, Hooper had 53 yards receiving, Bradley had 46. On the defensive side, you had no sacks. Myles Garrett did not get a sack in this game. Surprise, surprise. But Denzel Ward and Malcolm Smith both had interceptions. Listen, if the Lions won this game, they'd be talking about how good Swift was. Right. In my opinion, Swift played better than Chubb. But,
well, yeah, I mean, he did. He had a really good game. But Nick Chubb, I'm glad to see him back. He's had a little bit of a COVID injury, this and that. But it was glad to see him back. Overall, it's just a really tough situation for the Lions with having Tim Boyle be the quarterback. Honestly, I think they might have won this game with Jared Goff, because DeAndre Swift, he had to carry the entire team because of how bad the Boyle was playing. If Jared Goff is in there, I think that he's obviously more serviceable than Tim Boyle, and I think that he might be able to get some stuff done. But overall, the Browns defense did do a really good job. And the offense wasn't too bad in the first half. Just a tough game for Baker Mayfield in a year that he needs to be playing better. I mean, he's looking at his – I don't know if it's a contract year. I think that they can still give him
I think it's still extended one more.
Yeah, they can do the 5th-year option. But he needs to play better the rest of this year and next year if they only give him the 5th-year option. But this is a tough game for Cleveland, but that's how you have to win them. The Lions, I mean, they're the Lions. Can't wait for Thanksgiving, though. Get to watch the Lions play the Bears, and we'll all be Lions fans, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's you get that, and then you get the Raiders and the Cowboys, which should be a decent game. But, yeah, Lions-Bears, that is quite the I don't know.
Happy Thanksgiving. Let's put on the two of the trashiest teams in the NFL for everyone to watch. Enjoy the next 3 hours of your life.
Well, they got that game. They got the Raiders, Chargers, and then they got Bills, Saints. So not terrible games, but
the night game on Thanksgiving is usually like I never watch the night game on Thanksgiving because I'm just like I watch the first 2 games, I eat a lot, and then it's like it's nap time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, understandable. But yeah, no, it should be interesting to see what happens there with both those games because it's like the toilet bowl game, but then the other side of it, it's the Cowboys and the Raiders. Both teams need to win desperately.
Yeah, like 2 competent teams who haven't been playing that good as of late.
Yeah, and both teams and they both need to win. They both need to win big time. Speaking of wins and a little bit of an upset here, I must say, the Colts go to Buffalo and beat them 41-15. Jonathan Taylor had quite a game overall. And Buffalo just keeps going downward, but we'll get into that. Josh Allen threw for 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Just want to add it in here that Mitchell Trubisky threw an interception as well. Breda had 51 yards rushing. Nothing much else there on the rushing standpoint. Knox had 80 yards. And Stephon Diggs had 4 catches for 23 yards and 2 touchdowns. So fantasy guys weren't that upset with him there. On the defensive side, the Bills had 0 sacks and 0 interceptions, which is just crazy to me. This one here, the stat line here just is it's laughable. Carson Wentz threw for 11 for 20 for 106 and 1 touchdown, and still won 41-15 because his running back, Jonathan Taylor, ran for 185 yards, 4 touchdowns, and also added a receiving touchdown. And the leading receiver for the Colts was Jack Doyle there with only 30 yards. On the defensive side, there was only 1 sack by Paye there, and interceptions by Odom, Franklin, and Moore. So yeah, craziness here.
Yeah.
In this game, and Buffalo, I just thought they always. I just thought that their shit. They think their shit doesn't stink.
Yeah,
and it just
all I have to say is 2 words: Jonathan Taylor. What a game for Jonathan Taylor! I mean, he absolutely dominated. My roommate actually had to play against Jonathan Taylor in fantasy. He told me, he's like, man, I am getting absolutely killed right now. I was like, are you playing against Jonathan Taylor? He's like, let me see. Oh, yeah, I am. I was like, oh, yeah. Well, Jonathan Taylor's having a day. And he did. He had a great game. Carson Wentz didn't really dominate the stat sheet, but he didn't have a bad game. I watched him. He made some good throws. He ran the ball really good. Not terrible from Carson Wentz. Didn't dominate the stat sheet, like I said. The big thing in this game, other than Jonathan Taylor, is that the Colts defense, they really just had Josh Allen's number, and Buffalo was simply off. They just did not look right in this game. And that kind of makes you want to say, maybe this team isn't as good as everyone expected them to be. But overall, more than anything, yes, the Bills have struggled a lot over this season. They've had some really tough losses. But Indianapolis, they're another team like the 49ers who they didn't start off very strong, but they're a solid team, and they can really make a playoff push. I would not be surprised if Indy made the playoffs this year.
No, they're one of the hottest teams right now. They are. They're one of the hottest teams right now, and they deserve to be talked about like that. And it's basically because of that running back, Jonathan Taylor. And they're being smart now. They're using Jonathan Taylor like Wisconsin used Jonathan Taylor and just run the shit out of him.
His ass all game.
Yeah, he's okay with it. He's okay with it. He needs to have 20 to 25 carries to get hot, to get going. So good for them to know that. I know the weather probably wasn't great in Buffalo. I'm not sure. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
But overall, I just think that the thing is the Colts are playing great football right now, but the bigger thing is that Buffalo might blow this division and their fans might just drop and just I feel so bad for the fans because this was it. This was the year. This was everything. And now I don't know what's happening. I don't know.
They might be playing in the wild card as well.
The problem is they have no running game. Their best rusher is Josh Allen.
Right.
And the biggest problem with that is that if you can't run the ball, then you're screwed. And you do need to run the ball effectively to be a good team. You do at the end of the day.
Especially
Tom Brady has an effective run game when he needs it. It's just – but they need to go back to the drawing board a little bit and be like, what can we do here to get better? In the chats here, we got Matthew J. Evans shouting out a lot of stuff here. He thinks Buffalo will sneak in the playoffs but won't get past the wild card. What happened to Devlin Singletary? I have no clue. They're just not using him. They're not using Zach Moss for some reason.
Yeah, that's the thing. They have talented running backs. They're just not.
They have talented running backs too. That's like you said. That's the thing. Ashton, says, "Hey Tuna, how are you?" Matthew J. Evans says Taylor is a player of the week. I agree. A lot of people haven't been talking about this. Is because Buffalo's defense was always good when they had bad offenses and when they had bad teams, but their defense is a problem now.
Right.
Their defense has not been playing well at all. Micah Hyde hasn't been there making an interception, and it was just it's interesting how bad Buffalo's gotten in the matter of 3 weeks.
Right.
And now they've got that lingering, big fucking cloud of Belichick over their head now. Yeah. And that's going to mess with them. It is. I hate to say it, but it's going to mess with them going forward because he just has that over Buffalo. He always has, but we'll see what happens there. Moving on to a game that was tough to predict, but can't believe now the Eagles are at 5-6 right now. They were, when the Raiders played them a few weeks ago, they were horrible, and now they've rebounded since that game. They beat the Saints 40-29 at home. It should have been worse, but the Eagles let the Saints score 22 points in the fourth quarter. Going into the fourth quarter, it was 33-7. So, the score looks a little bit better. They tried hard to come back.
Right.
On the New Orleans side, stat-wise, Trevor Siemian threw for 214, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, also ran for a touchdown as well. Mark Ingram led the team in rushing with 88 yards and 25 yards receiving. On the receiving side, you had Smith had 64 yards receiving. You had Callaway, Troutman, and Humphrey all have receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side, Marcus Davenport had a sack and a half. Onyemata had half a sack. Cameron Jordan had 1 sack, and there was 0 interceptions. I will say this, Marcus Davenport has turned into quite a good defensive end. It took him a few years from the University of Texas San Antonio, but, he was kind of a wild. He could have been picked in the top 5, people were saying, but the Saints ended up getting him, and I think it's starting to work out for him because I think he's got over 5 sacks this year.
He's having a good year this year.
He's got 6.5, so that's not bad at all for him. On the Eagles side, Jalen Hurts had 147 yards rushing, but had 3 rushing touchdowns with 69 yards rushing. Their leading rusher was Miles Sanders with 94 yards, but Jordan Howard had 63 yards too. They had over 200 yards rushing. That's great. Leading receivers were Dallas Goedert with 61 yards, Devontae Smith with 61 yards. On the defensive side, you had no sacks, but interceptions by Edwards and Slay. Darius Slay, probably one of the best corners in the league that nobody talks about.
Yeah.
But so kind of a game that does have some playoff implications here, especially with Dallas losing and the Eagles winning. But yeah, the Eagles pull out another W.
Yeah, I would definitely be on the lookout for these Eagles. I mean, if they can continue to be, and I don't want to say that the Saints are a bad team, but without Jameis Winston in there, they're not a very good team. If the Eagles can beat the bad teams and a couple of these other teams that are fighting for wild card spots will lose, they can make a serious push for the playoffs. I don't really think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be like them and San Francisco will probably be some teams that are battling for that last playoff spot. But they could do it. And big play Slay, living up to his nickname. Doing his thing. Hurts absolutely balled out. Trevor Siemian, not so much. He obviously had a good effort. He made some throws, but overall, not a great game for him whatsoever. Personally, I think that the Saints probably should have been a little bit more aggressive at the deadline to get a quarterback, but that's just me. But yeah, just an ugly blowout. I mean, the score looks a lot closer than it actually was. The Saints got blown out.
Yeah, pretty much. They just scored a bunch of points in the fourth quarter when they had their backups in. Yeah. Ashton, asks, have you talked about the Raiders yet? We have not. We got a few games. We're going to talk about the Packers and then the Raiders. Got about another 15 minutes before we talk about both them teams, maybe a little bit less, but we will get to them for sure. Next game we got, which was a tough game to watch. I was at work, and I was unfortunately one of the places that I run has a bar in it. So I was lucky enough to work there where they had the NFL Sunday ticket. But I was watching the Packers-Vikings game most of the day, because there wasn't many people betting horses or nothing like that. So I was just sitting there. But there was Jets fans there, and it was just so funny to watch them, because it was a close game. I mean, Miami ended up winning because they came back in the fourth quarter. The Jets actually played pretty damn good, but watching the Jets fans, it's just so funny that they were waiting for the loss. But it was very interesting to watch that game because, there was also Miami fans there, and, they all have said the same thing, that they don't know why they've given up on Tua so quickly, but they also want Watson. So it's like, I get it. I get it. But speaking of that, the Dolphins win in New York 24-17. It was not a bad game overall. Both teams played well. Joe Flacco had a vintage good game with 291 and 2 touchdowns. On the rushing side, Carter was their leading rusher with 63 yards. On the receiving side, a little bit of a coming out party for a draft rookie, Elijah Moore, who many people thought he got picked really late in the draft compared to his ability, had 8 catches for 141 yards and a touchdown. Jamison Crowder had 44 yards and a receiving touchdown as well. On the defensive side, the Jets had no sacks, but Davis had an interception. And I want to go back to the Elijah Moore thing with Joe Flacco. It's so funny how Joe Flacco, who's a veteran guy, can find where he knows the good receivers are. It's so funny how these young quarterbacks never find that good receiver. And even when a veteran gets in there, they know who the best receiver is.
Yeah.
And it's always been Elijah Moore and, in my opinion, Corey Davis, but Corey Davis has the best corner on him. Right. But still, it's just funny how these veteran guys find, because I bet you if Flacco plays next week, Elijah Moore will have a good game because he just knows that, the guy's got the ability to do it. So on the winning side there, Tua Tagovailoa threw for 273 and an interception. Gaskin ran for 89 yards. Waddle had a rushing touchdown as well as 65 yards receiving. You had Mac Hollins with 2 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown. And you also had Myles Gaskin with 3 catches for 7 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side, Phillips, Jones all had sacks, and there was no interceptions thrown by by Joe Flacco there. But I will say this: there was that hit on Flacco yesterday. I don't know if it was by Phillips or Jones, but man, oh man,
Yeah.
he got crunched. But I was happy to see him get up. But overall, the Dolphins needed this win, and they got it, and they're now at 4-7, which is I know is a disappointment for a lot of Dolphins fans out there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really sloppy game from both teams. I mean, neither team
Could have won.
Yeah, I mean, but it was actually pretty exciting in the second half. The second half was a little bit more exciting. It's just two trash teams in a trash game, and it was mostly boring for both teams. Or I guess it was mostly boring, and both teams really struggled to do anything. I did not enjoy watching that game. It was nasty. It was an ugly game.
You know, it's something where, like I said, you see teams. Some guys I like with these young teams that are going to pick again pretty high because it looks like the Dolphins are going to pick pretty high again. They're developing their young players.
Right.
Elijah Moore looked good. Waddle looked good. Tua looked okay. You know, and it's that's what I watch these games for, is to see how the young players do and see what they can become, you know. What else we got here? Matt Evans says that 4-7 is not that bad. They could be worse. Diamond there says the Raiders are trash, and I'm a Raiders fan. I agree with you there, brother. Darnell Mooney was balling. I think we're getting into him in the next couple games here, but yeah, he is turning into quite the player as well. Well, actually, we're going to go over that game right now. The Ravens beat the Bears 13-16 in a heartbreaking way at the end of the game. I don't know if you saw it all, Mike, but man, oh man, Andy Dalton had brought them to the promised land, and then Tyler Huntley it's crazy because Lamar Jackson didn't play. So the game wasn't that great to watch, but the end of it was awesome to watch.
Yeah.
And, when, like I said, the place I was at had the ticket. So at the end of the game, I'm searching for the Raiders game, but they had that game on showing everything. So I got to see a lot of that. And that was just crazy. For the Bears, Andy Dalton threw for 201 and 2 touchdowns against a really good Baltimore Ravens team. You know, that was pretty good in my opinion. And Justin Fields left the game. He had 79 yards passing. He was 4 for 11. I may be wrong about Justin Fields. I thought he was going to be the best quarterback coming out of this draft, and he might not be getting it, especially when he's got guys like Robinson and Mooney and guys like that. So Montgomery had 58 yards rushing and 9 receiving. On the receiving side, he had Mooney with 121 yards and a touchdown. And then Marcus Goodwin, remember him, 104 yards and a touchdown. He did very well as well. On the defensive side, I mentioned this, Roquan Smith had 17 tackles. So go Dogs there for him. He's an awesome, awesome linebacker for the Dogs. Vildor had a sack. Robert Quinn had 3.5 sacks. 3.5 sacks against that Baltimore offensive line. Are you kidding me?
Crazy.
Gibson had a sack. Goldman had half a sack. And what is it? Gibson also had an interception. But Robert Quinn, the Baltimore Ravens look very shaky in this game.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson doesn't run the defense. And they still, it's just like, I don't know. Tyler Huntley had 219 with an interception and 40 yards rushing. Freeman had 49 yards and a touchdown and 31 yards receiving. Andrews had 73 yards receiving. Watkins had 48. On the defensive side, Bowser had 2 sacks. Houston had a sack, and there was no interceptions thrown. So, yeah, this game was screwy. Screwy, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is a weird game because you had 2 defenses that are actually pretty good. One of them was going against the backup quarterback in Huntley, and then the other defense was going against a rough offense that the Bears have, and then their backup quarterback. But I don't know if I consider Andy Dalton a backup quarterback because he did start the season for the Bears. But it was low scoring. Overall, I think this is really upsetting for Bears fans because it was a blown opportunity to get a win that they needed. With the way that the NFC and honestly the AFC too, the way that the way that the entire league has looked with it, like any team really having a shot at the playoffs, they needed this win. Andy Dalton actually got some stuff done for Chicago, but it just wasn't enough. It was a
He looked good. But then again, so think about this. Andy Dalton did well against the Bengals, against the Ravens.
Right.
He's a Bengals quarterback forever, which is kind of cool to see him have some,
didn't even think about it.
Success against an AFC North team,
Huh. I never even thought about it like that.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, it was a boring game, but the finish was great. It was a great end of the game. But throughout, I was like, dang, this is like a defensive game that's just boring the living hell out of me. But the ending was great. So,
what do you think the score would have been if Lamar Jackson was in there?
I definitely think that the Ravens would have won by a lot more, maybe like 28. Maybe they would have put up 28 points.
No, I'm just saying that
21. They would have at least put up like 25 points, 24, 24-13, something like that.
Well, no, I'm just saying because like Robert Quinn had those 3 sacks.
Right.
But were they really sacks or were they just because it was Tyler Huntley in there, But who knows? Next game we got before we get into the Packers and the Raiders, which we'll be getting into after this game. The Houston Texans. I repeat that. The Houston Texans beat the Tennessee Titans 22-13 at home. Tennessee was at home in this game, and they lost. Nothing crazy. I mean, I know Derrick Henry's out, but Tannehill's there. Everyone was there, that needed to be there, and they still lost. Let's start with Tennessee like I do always start with the losing team, which I never would have thought in this game. But I will say this, a lot of sports handicappers did predict that Texans would have a good game against these guys. Ryan Tannehill showed his true colors with 323 yards passing, with 1 touchdown and 4 big interceptions. 4 interceptions. Adrian Peterson had 9 rushes for 40 yards, 2 catches for 4. Let's see here. On the receiving side, Westbrook Akinney had 7 catches for 107 yards, and Fitzpatrick had 3 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown. A.J. Brown had 5 catches for 48 yards. On the defensive side, this was the big bummer. They had 0 sacks and 0 interceptions against the lowly Texans. On the Texans side, Tyrod Taylor throws for 107 yards, but ran for 28 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rex Burkhead, ladies and gentlemen, was your leading rusher with 40 yards. Rex Burkhead, a bald white guy, was the leading rusher in this game for... No, he tied Adrian Peterson. So him and Adrian Peterson both had 40 yards. On the receiving side, Conley had 37 yards. Cooks had 18. I mean, the stats here are just unbelievable. But on the defensive side for the Texans, King had 2 interceptions. Greiger Hill had an interception. Mitchell had an interception. Blaylock had a sack. Martin had a sack. Not a game you want to lose if you're Tennessee. I know they're 8-3, but still, come on.
Yeah, this was really rough for the Titans. Tyrod makes the Texans a whole lot better. I mean, if they had Davis Mills, I mean, I know that the defense only let the Titans score 13 points, but Tyrod definitely makes the team a lot better. And when I was watching Tannehill, sorry, he actually wasn't that bad, but those interceptions were all ugly, dumb, idiotic throws. His worst moments were taken advantage of. Guys make bad throws all the time. All of Ryan Tannehill's bad throws were taken advantage of. That was the difference in this game. But yeah, Houston, they had Tennessee looking weird the entire game. Just it was just weird. It was just weird to see how bad that the Titans played. But yeah, like I said, he wasn't terrible except on those 4 throws. They just happened to also be interceptions.
Yeah, no, I mean
For a ton of yards.
when they try to drive down to win to try to get close.
Yeah.
That interception he threw to King was just
He threw it in double coverage. He kind of threw to the defense.
brutal. But he had a bad game. I've never been a fan of Ryan Tannehill. I think that he has been successful with a good running game. If you put his seasons next to if he had 1,000-yard rusher, and when he didn't, the record is unbelievably skewed.
I don't like Ryan Tannehill.
No, I'll tell you why. Because I made fun of Ryan Tannehill on Twitter and got roasted by Titans fans because I said he just wasn't that talented. They thought he was like top 10, and I don't see that at all.
All the Titans fans
top 10 with the running back he has.
Yeah,
he does, and I don't know. And what is it? Jake Murrow, who's on the chat right now. Give us about 5-10 minutes. We'll be talking about the Raiders. I know you're a Raiders fan, so sit tight so you can hear about it. But first, we're going to talk about probably one of the best games of the season already. I know it sucks for you because you're a Packers fan, but the Vikings win with a last-second field goal, 34-31. What a great ending to this game. The Vikings at one point were up 16-3, and then it was 16-10, then it was 23-10, and for some reason the Vikings just let teams get back into it. And the biggest mistake the Packers made was they scored too quickly.
Right.
Scanlon, that's what it was. They just scored too quickly and gave Kirk Cousins, but finally Kirk Cousins did finally win a game.
Right.
Like he should have and not blow it. So, I know it's tough for Packers fans, but for Vikings fans, it was nice to see that, I'm guessing. On the losing side, which is crazy to say that this was losing stats, but Aaron Rodgers threw for 385 and 4 touchdowns, and he had less than 10 incompletions. Their leading rusher was A.J. Dillon with 53 yards rushing, averaging almost 5 yards a carry, which is pretty damn good. On the receiving side, Valdez-Scantling had 4 catches for 123 and a touchdown. Devontae Adams had 7 catches for 115 and 2 touchdowns. And tight end DeGora had 37 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side, let's see here, Preston Smith had 2 sacks. And I think that was it.
Yeah.
Just Preston Smith had 2 sacks, and there should have been
Darnell Savage dropped like 3 interceptions.
That's what I was about to say. There should have been 3 or 4 interceptions as well. But good to see Preston Smith back into it. For them to get close without Jones, I think it showed the heart of the Packers, but I know it's hard to talk about that. Kirk Cousins, 341 and 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Dalvin Cook, 86 yards and a touchdown. Justin Jefferson just balled out. 8 catches, 161 and 2 touchdowns. Adam Thielen, 8 catches, 82 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side, you had sacks from Smith and Watts, and there was no interceptions. There was no interceptions thrown in this game, even though Kirk Cousins should have had 4. So, floor is yours, my friend. Go ahead.
It was a pretty tough outing for the Packers defense. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers balled out, had a great game. Kirk Cousins, he was great on the stat sheet. He definitely had really good stats. But he had a lot of dropped interceptions. One of those being a really iffy call whenever Darnell Savage essentially picked it off, kind of went to the ground and rolled. But, and here's why I say but it wasn't an interception because the ball didn't survive the ground. That is like if the ball doesn't survive the ground after you catch it, even if you hit the ground, if the ball doesn't survive contact on the ground, it's not a catch. So I get why they reversed that one. But overall, I mean, it was a great game and a tough loss versus a really good team. And that's the thing about the Vikings is they are a pretty good team, and they're in our division. We play them twice every single year, so they knew who they were playing. We knew who we were playing. Great game. Jefferson absolutely was unstoppable in this game. It didn't matter who we had on him. Maybe if we had Jerry Alexander, maybe we could have been able to do that. But hey, I can't be too mad at this loss because it was on the road. It was against a divisional team. Not to mention, we have 8 wins. The second team in our division is the Lions, or not the Lions, the Vikings. They have 5. So we have a pretty comfortable lead right now. It's all good.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's one thing that the Packers have had is a cushion. They've had a cushion of different sort of they always their seasons always seem to be the same. Either they got a wide margin or they're winning by the hair of their chinny chin chin.
Right.
But this year just seems different. And I think every Packers fan will say that, if it wasn't for interceptions and blah, blah, blah. But you got to realize, too, some of your best players are on injury. Jair's not there, which means Jefferson would not have had as good of a game, in my opinion. Harrison Smith was not Harrison Smith, I'm sorry. Zadarius Smith was not there, which means there would have probably been another sack or 2 from somebody else if Harrison Smith was getting blocked. And, overall, you can't be upset with the performance because they never gave up. They were down to a point where they could have given up.
Yeah, I mean, we could have easily lost this game by 20-plus points.
That's what I'm saying. But
I'm not worried. It's just this is the NFL. This isn't college football. You're not going to win every single game.
As much as I this is the thing too, is that they didn't give up, and it just seems like Rodgers didn't give up either, which is good to see because we all know he's possibly leaving, and all that stuff. For him not to give up is just, it's good. I mean, it's good. This team's they're gonna be in the playoffs. They're gonna probably make the NFC Championship game again. It's just, hey.
Can we just skip the NFC Championship game? Can we just go right to the Super Bowl?
I feel you on that one. I really do.
I'm tired of going to the NFC Championship game.
But I mean, I know that they've got a bye coming up, but I know their next game,
the Rams,
is against the Rams, and I'm not
worried.
Yeah, I don't think they have anything to worry about there, and it's just it's in the game. It could be in LA or where it's in Green Bay. So I mean, even wow, they're only making Green Bay a 1-point favorite there. Give me a break on that.
You figure that home field advantage would give us a little bit more than that, right?
Yeah, you would think so, but
don't they spot you 3 points if it's like
that's a myth, but that's what I go by as well. The home point 3 thing. Yeah. So if they were in LA, that means that they would think the Rams would be a 2-point. No, 2, because it's only 1.
Oh, because we're favorited. We're favored.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to the next game we got here, where the Raiders dropped to 5-5. The Bengals increased to 6-4. They lose 32-13, and the game was not that different. It wasn't that big of a blowout. The Cincinnati Bengals scored a lot of points with less than 5 minutes to go because it was just garbage time, and the game was over. Statistic-wise, the Raiders, Derek Carr threw for 215, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Jacobs had 37 yards rushing and 24 yards receiving. Waller had 116 yards receiving. Renfro had 30 yards, and Moreau had the receiving touchdown. On defense, we had sacks from Ngakoue, Solomon Thomas, and Quentin Jefferson, and there was no interceptions thrown. On the defensive side, on the Bengals side, Joe Burrow threw for 148 and 1 touchdown. Joe Mixon had a great game, 30 rushes, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Taj Boyd had 49 yards receiving. Jamar Chase was only held to 32 yards and a touchdown, which shows that the Raiders have developed some decent cornerbacks, and Hayward Jr. was not the one covering him. It was a face-on, which he's turned out to be a lot of fun to watch. On the defensive side, you had Hubbard had a sack, as well as Hendrickson and Eli Apple had the interception. All right. So the game was not, it really wasn't a blowout. Yards wise, the teams, hold on, I can tell you, hold on one second, because I know it's not that different. So total yards, the Bengals outgained the Raiders by 10 yards, 288 to 278. The biggest thing that I think hurt the Raiders was time of possession. The Bengals had the ball for 38 minutes out of 60. That means the Raiders only had it for 22. And just absolutely insane. And this might be unpopular for me to say, but just listen before you comment. As of right now, Tom Brady has not played yet. Derek Carr is second in the league in passing yards with over 3,000. And this is our 10th game. He struggled sometimes to get to 3,000. And he's at 3,000 already. But, I do think it's time for the Raiders to think about playing Mariota. Because
That's my guy.
I think that the Gruden and Ruggs thing has broken Derek Carr. Derek Carr is a man of faith and all that stuff, and he believes the best out of people. And two guys that he really loved did some pretty shitty things. And I think Derek Carr is just checked out. Yeah. And if they don't decide to go for Mariota and they play Carr against the Cowboys and he can't get up for a Thursday night Thanksgiving game, then I would really think he should be not the starter going forward. Now, everyone is upset with Carr. I'm upset with Carr. But let's also look at a couple things here, and then we're going to move on. Josh Jacobs literally looks like a slug out there running. When you see Josh Jacobs run the ball and then you see Kenyon Drake run the ball, it's like a 10-mile-per-hour difference. I don't know if the injuries have slowed down Jacobs or what, but he just doesn't look good. And every person in football knows that, yes, you can have great quarterback. You can have great receivers. You can have great cornerbacks. You can have great linebackers. But a football team is won, and a football game is won by the line, defensive line and offensive line. Honestly, the Raiders' defensive line has actually turned it around a little bit, playing very well, getting sacks almost every game, where they weren't getting sacks for 3 or 4 games in a row.
Right.
The Raiders' offensive line, besides Colton Miller, is absolutely putrid. And that's going to happen when you trade away all your best players that they wanted out. So I do think that we're going to have a new coach and new GM next year. I just hope that they focus on possibly replacing Carr and fixing that offensive line, because I don't know where they're going to put Leatherwood, but it's just not good right now for Raider football, and it's just not good. And I will say this, the penalties that the Raiders are committing on defense when it's third down and they get the people done, but they make a stupid hit or they try to hit someone too hard. It's like, guys, you can't do that anymore in the NFL. It's just a rule.
Yeah.
You can't do it anymore in the NFL, and they keep screwing themselves with that. So that's
this game was actually, it 32-13. I feel like that's kind of deceiving because this was a really close and low-scoring game. Just a few little mistakes that the Raiders made in the second half or in the fourth quarter is what made this look like a blowout. It was really just a blowout in the fourth quarter more than anything. It all boils down to, like you said, Carr and the Raiders offense, they just struggled. They did not play great in this game. Burrow and the Bengals, they're keeping their division hopes alive. This was an important win for them. I don't even know what I could say about the Raiders, man, that I said last week and the week before.
It's like Jekyll and Hyde. They have 2 great games, 2 bad games, 2 great games, 2 bad games. But now they've had 3 bad games in a row, and it's just not. The team isn't right now, and the Ruggs thing killed them. And for some reason, Deshaun Jackson barely used. I barely saw him on the field. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. I mean, the Cowboys, that's a winnable game.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, especially with the injuries we have. I don't want to say that in a good way or bad way, but it's true. They might not have Lamb, they might not have Cooper. That's going to benefit the Raiders. Speaking of the Cowboys, they played the Chiefs in a game that I thought was going to be so much better played, honestly.
It's going to be more fun to watch, yeah.
Yeah, Dallas loses to Kansas City 9-19. It was just a really tough games to watch. Dallas, Dak Prescott was struggled. He had 216 and 2 interceptions, which means that if he plays against the Raiders, he's probably going to go 25 for 30, 6 touchdowns, 3,000 yards. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because every team that's in a slump just needs to just play the Raiders, and then they're good.
Yeah. This happened to the Bengals.
Yeah. Pollard had 50 yards rushing. He was their leading rusher over Ezekiel Elliott. Schultz had 53 yards receiving. Gallup had 44 yards receiving. And like I said, CeeDee Lamb went out with an injury. On the defensive side, Micah Parsons getting better and better, 2 sacks. Armstrong had a sack, and Curse had an interception. On the Kansas City side, Patrick Mahomes threw for 260 and an interception. Edwards-Helaire, welcome back, had 63 yards and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill had 77 yards. Travis Kelce had 74 and a rushing touchdown. On the defensive side, Jones had 3.5 sacks. Good for him. He had 3.5 sacks there. Reed had half a sack. Clark had a sack. And Ward and Snead both had interceptions. But, yeah, overall, not the greatest game to watch. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no, it was a bad game for the Cowboys. The Chiefs' defense really gave Prescott nothing. Like, they did not give him any opportunity to do anything. The Chiefs' offense wasn't much better, though, but they did just enough to get the win. With all the NFC losses that happened this week, man, if I'm the Cowboys, I wouldn't even sweat this loss. Just a tough game, but they need a win on Thursday. They need a win just as bad as any team needs a win this Thursday.
They need a win as bad as the Raiders do.
Yeah, they definitely will need a win though. But yeah, like you said, just I thought it was going to be better. I thought this was going to be a big offense game. We know that the Chiefs' defense isn't very good, and the Cowboys' defense is pretty good. But the Chiefs, I mean, they've got weapons on offense. I thought they would do a little bit better than they did. Just not really how this game panned out. It wasn't too bad, but overall, just. I was a lot more excited at the beginning of the game than I was like 10 minutes into. I was like, wow, this game is terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. But I really don't think it shaped up to be anything. Dallas is still the best team in the NFC East.
Right.
And the Chiefs are number 1 in the NFC,
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Next game. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Cardinals, without Kyler Murray or DeAndre Hopkins, traveled to Seattle and beat Seattle 23-13 at home. What is wrong with Seattle? This is the year I think they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's just not their year, because it's just they got everybody and they still ain't winning. They need to just get a running back. It's like the curse of Marshawn Lynch. Ever since Lynch left, they have not found a running back that can help them. On the losing side, Russell Wilson threw for 207. Let's see here. Alex Collins had 36 yards. Dallas had 1 rushing touchdown. Lockett had 115 yards receiving. Metcalf only had 31. On the defensive side, Moan had a sack and a half, and Ford had half a sack, and Jones had an interception for Seattle. On the Arizona side, Colt McCoy, ladies and gentlemen, threw for 328 and 2 touchdowns. James Conner had 62 yards and another touchdown. That's his 13th of the year. I don't even think he has that many yards. And he's got 13 touchdowns. Zach Ertz had a coming out game. 8 catches, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A.J. Green had a good game as well. 78 yards. And that's it. And I thought he scored a touchdown too. That's why I gave the segue. Moore, though, had 11 catches for 51 yards. That's like 4 yards a catch. That's so funny. That's so funny for a receiver to have that many catches for nothing. It's like high school shit. Let's see. Chandler Jones had 2 sacks, which brings his total to, I think, he has 8. But didn't he have 5 in the first game? So he's had 3 since the first. But he was hurt for a while. Yeah. But Chandler Jones had 2 sacks. Golden had a sack. Simmons had a sack. And no interceptions were thrown. But man, oh man, Colt McCoy threw for 328.
Yeah, I mean he was big in this game, and Zach Ertz was really big in this game too. With D-Hop still being out. The thing about the Cardinals is they played 3 games without Kyler Murray. They're 2-1, so we know that they can win those games if the matchup is just right. Man, the Seahawks, are they just bad? Are they just not a good football team?
I don't know. I don't know what
the Jets. They're not the Lions. They're not the Jaguars. They're not the Texans. They're not that kind of bad. But are they a bottom 10 team in the NFL?
No.
I mean, there's only 32 teams. Are they top 22?
If they're a bottom 10, they're 10th. They're like
I don't know. I'd have to look at it because they have not looked good this year at all.
We'll see because I could see them. What is it? They could end up still 10-7.
Right.
They could win out, but it's for the Cardinals to still be 9-2 without Murray or Hopkins, I think should be hats off to the coach.
Right.
I mean, no one's really talked about Cliff Kingsbury. Him and Matt LaFleur are probably 2 of the best looking coaches in the league. But meaning looks wise, not like team wise. Like they're very good looking.
Yeah, Matt LaFleur is a good looking dude.
Good looking dude. Don't know why they're married. But
that shirt Rodgers was wearing, it was like my coach is hotter than your coach.
I actually think him and LaFleur have gotten better relationship wise.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which is just interesting because like he's gonna leave next year. Which is just I don't know what to read into it anymore. But overall
into it. I appreciate every game like it's gonna be the last.
Yeah, I hear you. But it just honestly Seattle's not as bad, and Arizona seems like they're pretty fucking good. No matter what.
Yeah.
And good for Colt McCoy. He's a journeyman. He was so good in college. And he kind of got that injury with the Browns and then just got crushed by Harrison there. And he was never the same. But whenever he plays, he wins.
Yeah, he's a really good backup. I mean, I would going to be the backup of my team.
I don't think he's a team builder, but I'm just saying that good for Colt McCoy to have, because when you have games like this, it gets you paid going forward, either by that team or by,
somewhere else.
All right, we're going to end it with this one. The Steelers go to the Chargers in a crazy, crazy game, crazy fourth quarter. That's all it was. It was a crazy fourth quarter. But the Chargers hold on 41-37. Like I said, in a crazy fourth quarter where I believe the Steelers scored 27 points in the fourth quarter. 27 points, but the Steelers were still able to hang on, or the Chargers were still able to hang on. Big Ben threw for 273 and 3 touchdowns. Najee Harris had a rushing touchdown and 39 yards rushing. Johnson had 101 yards and a touchdown. Claypool had 93 yards. Ebron had 24 yards and a touchdown, and Freiermuth had 11 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side, Highsmith had a sack and a half. Taco Charlton had a sack and had a half a sack. All right.
I didn't know he was still playing football. What?
Neither did I. And Sutton had himself a interception off of Cameron Hayward. Ball hit him right in the head. That was kind of funny. Yeah. Justin Herbert balled out with 382, 3 touchdowns and an interception. Eckler had 50 yards and 2 touchdowns and 65 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. But also Herbert ran the ball for 90 yards. Crazy there. On the offensive side or receiving side, Keenan Allen had 112 yards receiving. Mike Williams had 97 yards and a touchdown. And like I said, Eckler had 65 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side, Bosa had a sack, and Wasu had a sack. Fackrell had a sack, and there was no interceptions thrown. But, man, what a crazy fourth quarter crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game, a crazy game. Justin Herbert, like you said, the guy balled out. He absolutely dominated this game, throwing the ball and running the ball. Austin Eckler, he was really the star of the show. He ran the ball good. He caught the ball. He was a great receiver in this game, receiver and running back. But yeah, Big Ben and the Steelers, they were really good down the stretch. They had a really good comeback effort in this game. But that last drive where they had the ball ended up being like 4th and 30 something.
Oh, and, yeah.
That's just kind of – it's like there's this great – it's kind of like whenever the Packers and Vikings. Great game all throughout. They end it by taking 2 straight kneels and then kicking a field goal. The Steelers kind of did the opposite of that. Great game all throughout, right? They end it by just losing their mind and just being dumb on that last drive. So, but I mean, other than that, yeah, it was a great game, a great finish. So I know that there's a lot of Raiders fans who probably aren't excited to see the Chargers win. But being an Oregon guy, Justin Herbert, I was glad to see him win, especially since the Packers got beat yesterday. So, yeah, I mean, wasn't a bad game. It was a lot of fun to watch, and happy to see my guy Herbert ball out.
No, I mean, that's something that, I knew this game was going to be good. I didn't think it would be this good. Right. I also, when I kept seeing the score, I kept checking back and be like, wait a minute. Didn't they just score? And wait a minute, didn't they just score?
They kind of had
crazy like that. It was
whenever we hit Marquez Valdez-Scantling for that touchdown, that long touchdown, they kind of had the same thing with Mike Williams. And I was kind of like, oh no, here the Chargers are about to do what the Packers did.
And you're right about that. But it was just the Chargers defense just swarmed them.
Oh yeah, that Chargers defense was there. So
yeah, no, they did a great job. Another thing too is that a little bit of an update, but the Giants and the Buccaneers were tied. Now the Buccaneers are up 17-10, but still a close game there. But Tom Brady got a pick 6 thrown against him with the an offensive lineman. I believe defensive lineman scored a pick 6. So we'll see.
That's y'all's go. My go. Right? Pick 6 is the D lineman. Everyone hates me because they're always like, "Who's the greatest quarterback ever?" And I'm like, "In terms of what?" Because when I say in terms of what, I'm already gonna say Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he's got a great legacy. He's got a great legacy, great career. Good for him. Most talented player I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes.
He's good. We'll see. A little bit of a bitch, to be honest, but whatever. Yeah. A little bit of a whiner, but whatever. But that's our show. Thank you so much for everyone that checked it out with us. We had a ton of people in the comments. Matthew J. Evans, who's always a staple. Carla Jenkins, Austin Ha. We had Diamond. We had Jake Murrow. A couple other people in there. We love you guys to hang out with us. Like I said, we're here either Monday or Tuesday. We try to aim for Tuesday, but Monday's always good too. Yeah, thank you for watching. Remember to like, remember to subscribe to both channels, Bigger Better Sports as well as Mikkel Sports. You can find me on Instagram at Bigger and Better Sports. You can find Mike on Instagram at
Michael Sports _ YouTube. I haven't posted on there in like a week, but Twitter's where you really need to find me. Just at Michael Sports.
At Michael Sports for him, at Big Tuna BBS for me. And finally, everybody have a good holiday. Enjoy it with your family. Don't fucking drink and drive. And if you are in a DUI incident, remember to go to your fucking mandated thing that Henry Ruggs didn't go to. Did you see that?
No, what was it?
Yeah, they had to have like an alcohol thing with him where this house arrest where he has to check in and he missed it.
So he's not like in jail yet.
No, he's in house arrest instead of jail. But he has to check in with a
come on,
and he missed it already.
You're not even putting him in jail. And
he missed his first one. He missed his first one. What an idiot.
Oh, Henry, come on, man. We're all rooting for you to come on, man.
Yeah. But other than that, everyone have a good Thanksgiving. We'll see you guys soon. We'll see you guys next week. Probably be a shorter show because we're going to have less games, but still we'll be here. Probably won't talk about. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But everyone have a good holiday. It's that time of year. Enjoy your family. And we'll see you guys soon.
Hopefully the Raiders give me a reason to bring my Mariota jersey over to my dad's for Thanksgiving.
There you go.
I'm going to bring it. Hopefully they give me a reason to wear it.